I want to talk about Extinction Events, which will be coming up in 2019. We are almost finishing 2019 and 2020, which some smart analysts, they know that this is going to happen, and they kind of talk about it. I'm gonna go through a few of them. I'm usually careful with videos that are kind of thorny and talk about unsavory topics, that to have them or do them in the early morning before people come around, like around 6 a.m. here. So I'm a little bit late today. It's like 5 something. So I'm just gonna kind of go through this list of these concepts or ideas, and I'll start with economic philosophies or practices, and then gradually move into groups that are on an extinction roll. And it's sometimes difficult to see that a system or a tribe or an empire is ending, because right before the end they are in full control and everything's going well, but the things are not right. There is a lot of internal worry and strife. Well, one of the things that kind of pointed out in this direction when I was listening to Peter Schiff, and he believes wholeheartedly in an old style capitalism, and then he was spending some time criticizing Yang for proposing basic income. But then I was listening to Kaiser Report, and Max was saying that basic income is very good because it broadens the economic base. There are more people have skin in the game, and it will also give rise to industries that the society actually wants, not zombie companies or well, in the same video that Peter Schiff had, he also started talking about zombie companies that are losing valuation in the stock market, like Uber or Lyft, or there was another one, was a Red Apron or something like that. The company had lost a considerable amount of their valuation, and a few other companies. Well, then the Federal Reserve or plunge protection usually comes in and buys everything. Like it's like a huge suction cap that picks up everything off the floor and cleans up the floor, and the floor is a floor to the stock market. Things don't slip under the floor. Well, this is itself a first example of extinction event, because the Federal Reserve have been buying so much junk, so much money losing stocks, so much bonds, and then it's going to end up in devaluation of the dollar itself. So that's an extinction event. Is a practice that kind of cheerleads the market or the bond market, but it's costly. People don't see the cost because it goes on the balance sheet of the central bank, but the central bank can have problems too, and at some point they will have to stop, or what will probably happen will be the next extinction event is that many investors will wake up and say, oh my God, I have all these bonds and they are not paying any returns, let me sell them off with a little loss and go invest my money in something else, in gold or whatever. And so this will give rise to asynchronous or sudden jumps in interest rate. But this won't be the interest rate on the bonds that the central bank issues. It will be on the interest rate of corporate bonds or any kind of bonds, or bonds from foreign banks or foreign entities that have tied themselves to U.S. central bank, and they will get their ass kicked very hard, and that would be like a very sharp rise in interest rate. That's an extinction event, and the extinction event will happen in peripheral countries like banks of Italy, Deutsche Bank, and other banks, and then it will cascade back to United States, to U.S. companies, corporate bonds, and then also it will show up in devaluation of the dollar, and then when the central bank comes around and buys all these worthless bonds and stocks, it really doesn't change things very much, or doesn't jack up the price of the stocks, because the investors have figured out, hey, these stocks are very overpriced, and that's cascade into the next extinction event. When the interest rate on corporate bonds jacks up, then it will affect the interest rate on housing, and the housing is already very overpriced, and then will result in asynchronous, like sudden, sharp collapses in prices, that some investors have woken up and want to get out any way they can. They will sell at huge discounts. That's an extinction event in another market. But then these are not the only ones. It's a form of cascade, like sudden drop here, and then next one another drop, and so on. It just keeps going on. It's like falling off a very high steps. You fall. There's a little plateau. Then you fall some more. It's like that. Well, I want to talk about political, and then I'll talk about military extinction events. The political extinction, and Peter Schiff does talk about it, is that he thinks that Trump will be a one-term president, and these collapses, or mini collapses, or sudden collapses in the economy will become too hard to deny that, hey, this didn't happen. All these stores didn't close. The bond market is not in a mess. Our stock market is not in a mess. Our foreign policy is not a disaster, and so on. It become to a point that the voters will not believe the regular politicians anymore, and the other practice or other extinction event will be many of these zombie companies that exist now, and the only reason that they exist is all this cheap money is coming in and keeping them alive. But there will come a point that there has been so many mini collapses or other collapses in the market, in the bond market, in the housing market, in the job market, that the investors that are lying to themselves and listening to pretty little stories, they will have hard time believing that it's a good thing to come up with the next Uber IPO, or the next Lyft, or next, I think it was a Blue Apron or something like that, or another unicorn IPO. It just becomes the reality or the truth just kind of seeps in. People will kind of either consciously or unconsciously will want to make a different decision, and this is the extinction event for zombie companies and zombie bonds, negative interest rate bonds, or many sovereign government bonds, or large foreign banks, which is like either concurrent or as a consequence to other collapses that have happened. So then it will also cascade to different groups of people, and well, I think that many like U.S. politicians will lose their job, and also these other practices like buying shares back, they become obsolete because there is a better use of the money. I think that the next Democratic president might be very radical, like institute policies, because the voters have seen that all these things that the new liberals or all the star politicians like Trump have done have resulted in more financialization. All the money that came in because of tax returns went into stock buybacks, and nothing changed. So there is a good reason to believe that it would be okay to spend money or whatever equity is left in the economy on our own selves, on programs that are really social programs like social security or basic income, or and this is not as bad as Peter Schiff says, because it would broaden the economic base, and also it will result in money or capital being spent on industries that society has an interest in developing. Well, they want to legalize pot. Uh, well, that could be. A lot of people like pot. I think it's less devastating to the body than cigarettes. And then other things, industries that might pop up would be automation that can make everyday products that we don't need China, and jobs that are geared to helping individuals, like in healthcare. It might drop the cost on healthcare, I don't know. But when the consumer or the citizen has the ability to allocate the money, rationally to what he or she might need, then most people are not inclined to go, I have like $1,000 coming, let me just sign up and buy a chalet, even though I can't afford it, and give all this to the bank too. I mean, most people will not want to do that, but the central bank would go out with his paycheck, with his checkbook, and buy all these underwater property mortgages. So there would be more smart way of spending the money or the capital, and then it will result in other industries that are relevant to society, are relevant to our times. Well, I was watching these videos on hydroponic growing of plants and vegetables and even fruits. That's an industry, indoor farming, that can take off, less dependent on other resources or other countries. Well, there is, I think that this extinction event is gonna kind of seeping into the part of society, American society, that's the affluent, the white males, and Max Kaiser, he talks about this, that there are groups in the United States that were dominant, they were influential, and they're gonna die out because the society doesn't want them or need them anymore, and they are a drag. Well, the Wall Street, many companies might die out because of cryptocurrencies and tokens that you could put your money into, and you don't have to worry about all kinds of thieves and fraudsters coming in and playing with it and taking the equity away. Well, technology becomes smarter, then might result in a smarter allocation of capital and use of it. And also, if you want to invest, you will be less likely to invest your own personal money, which is limited, into a fund that everybody is dumping their derivatives into that fund. I mean, you gotta kind of be familiar with this subject to see what I'm saying. I was watching videos about Israel and how it went into Lebanon with two drones. One was a surveillance drone, and the Hezbollah was saying that they hit it with the stones and captured it. But the other one got into the building where there was research going on to make precision weapons, and it exploded and killed two Hezbollah. Well, the Hezbollah retaliated, and they blew up. I think it was a convoy of Israeli soldiers that was like 4 or 5 miles inside Israel. And there were some videos, and at the same time, the Hezbollah was saying that there is no red lines. We just gonna attack them, attack their drones, their planes. Well, Iran unveiled anti-aircraft systems which are even superior to S-300. I think they are between S-300 and S-400. It's called Bavar 373, and they're gonna find their way to Syria. Well, I think there is already S-300, and these systems will track and shoot down even F-35s, the best Air Force planes that Israel has. I think that many of these countries will find a way to shoot down any Israeli drone or F-22 or F-35, anything that gets off the ground in Israel, because Israel has been attacking non-stop for 60 years using their F-14s and other planes to go into many countries, and they have dreams of coming over Iran. But if they, I hope they do and they get shut down. I would love to see their wrecked planes on the floor. Well, if we capture one of the F-35s, well, that's a very expensive plane. That would be very valuable, the technology to replicate such a plane. But you get the drift of what I'm saying, that there is going to be an extinction event of the Israeli Air Force. That there is, they're not going to be flying too many planes or drones. And well, the next, it will cascade once the enemy, which is Syria, or enemy of Israel, which is Syria or Iran or Lebanon or Hamas, they get hold of these weapons. I think the next extinction event will be the passenger planes. So it will become like a air blockade of Israel. Well, then Also, I see in video footages of Houthi rebels and Hezbollah that they have now access to much better weapons that destroy material, like entire tank. Or I saw in the video with they were shooting the convoy. There were two anti-tank barrage that went out, and one completely hit the vehicle. Well, in the Houthi footages of war, you see these a lot of anti-tank weapons, and they were either manufactured in Iran or by Houthis or by Hezbollah themselves. That these, when they become prevalent, when the air force shuts down, then the ground forces can move in and destroy convoys and destroy tanks, recapture the territories. Well, there was a third video about this incident which points to this extinction event. Is that some Arab, or I think it was RT Arab reporters had gone into Israel itself, and they were looking at a base that was close to the border. Everybody had just left the base. It was completely empty. There was a tank, all the rooms, everything was empty. And the reporters just went in, were looking around. Well, I think that what will happen to Israel, which will be an extinction event, is that it will get captured, ground captured by Hezbollah. And what will happen to Saudi Arabia is the same. It will be ground captured by Houthis, which is similar technology and similar. And well, I don't know if this extinction event might happen to U.S. military. Or the U.S. military is going from place to place and testing the grounds, see if we can, do war. For example, they had gone to Venezuela and they were testing, see if they could overthrow their government or attack them. I think my guess is that something similar will happen to United States. It will get engaged in an arena where the enemy or their enemies is not only expecting them but knows how to completely demolish them. It will result in a lot of losses of lives. Well, the other extinction event is all the whites that have lost their political and economic status in the United States, and later on in Israel, they'll be just driven out. The population will lose hope, and there's more suicides, more wretchedness. The another extinction event that's kind of might happen is many old industries are going to be replaced because newer technologies like 3D printing and nanotechnology or bioreactors or indoor farming will replace them with more products at cheaper rates. Well, these are some of the events that I had in the back of my mind. I think that the population is dropping in many white or Western civilizations because of there was a period of the wealth in 50s and 60s, so they didn't have as many kids. But later on, the wealth effect went away, and people had a lot of worries of having just one kid. Like me and my ex, she didn't want to even have my second kid, which is like stupid. But I think that the this generation and the next, that people will not have any kids because their lifestyle is so destructive and so unstable. They're all in the gig economy. They're all turning gay and also on drugs, that there is no resources to give to kids. So the kids, the white kids, are the ones that are on the next roll of extinction. Also, there will be less and less of these kids. Well, I think in Orange County, there is about a third of the kids are not entirely white. They're born from parents that the mother is white, and then the father is like Asian or Middle Eastern or even black, and this this is a trend. This is something that will go on. And actually, population is very important because that's the future. If you don't have a future, then you're done. Another video was called "Our Non-Anglo Progenies and Futures," which is about this subject. Also, population itself is a wealth because you have a huge consumer market and the money is distributed and a lot of industries can take off. But when the population drops, then there is more problems and the society is more prone to collapse and fracture. Well, thank you very much for being in my YouTube channel. Please subscribe and leave your comment.